African delegation to the World Economic Forum in Switzerland are doing their best to sell the country's good story. But is it that easy? Dismal employment numbers, problematic state-owned enterprises and low growth are doing little to inspire confidence. eNCA's Devan Murugan is in Davos and joins us now. Devan, before we talk about the story that South Africa is going to tell and who's there, we know that Donald Trump, escaping his impeachment woes, is there. What sort of groundbreaking statements is he making to try and obscure what's happening back at home?
Well, good morning, Jane. Yes, indeed. It was the highlight of the day yesterday in the Davos summit here at the World Economic Forum. And basically, you had a U.S. president being quite defiant. What he says that we should reject all of these prophets of an apocalypse. He says that's overplayed in many ways. He did this in the presence of the teenage activist Greta Thunberg, and I mean quite different his message from what's been called an emergency here at the Davos summit. You'll know in the lead up to this summit they spoke about the fact that climate change is in the top 5 of risks affecting the world economy. But you had a U.S. president actually saying that is a prophet of doom, a remark, and it's been overplayed. What he did yesterday was just sing and beat the drum of the U.S. and its economic success under his administration. So, raised a few eyebrows, if you like, Jane.
Well, it's bad for his business, isn't it, and his supporters, climate change. South Africa, the delegation there, who are they? What's their message?
Yeah, so we had this evening yesterday, the South African welcoming evening, and the message was very similar to what they had before they departed for Davos. They're saying that they will not use spin at this conference. That's the message from the Finance Minister, Tito Mboweni. I asked one of the other leaders of the delegation, the International Relations Minister, Naledi Pandor. Look, you've spoken to investors already. It's been a day or two. What has been perhaps one of the most pressing concerns, and Jane, you wouldn't have to guess, it's Eskom. Investors are worried about setting up camp in the country, bringing their money through, when factories may just have intermittent power. So she says that's been one of the pressing issues. She mentioned once again there isn't a total blackout in the country, but it is becoming difficult on convincing the Eskom story. That's pretty much a negative one. Look, the South African delegation, of course, have pointed out to many of the other positive factors that they're trying to sort of lure investors with. We've got a diversified economy, they say. We've made moves on an integrated energy plan, some moves on the visa issue as well. But will that count? We still have bleeding SOEs in the country that's become a contingent liability to the government fiscus. We have the Eskom problem. These are things that are structural, Jane, and investors have been beating upon this for a very, very long time. In fact, the Reserve Bank Governor, Lesetja Kganyago, telling me that it's actually been a bit easier to do the convincing 2 years ago than it is now. But he says that the positive points of getting this economy growing should be trumped here.
And Devan, let's listen to what Tito Mboweni had to say there.
Before I came to this meeting now, I received a message from the Director General of the National Treasury that they are working feverishly to try and secure that funding. It's very important that that happens in a fiscally neutral way, because we don't have an appropriations bill that can find an additional 2 billion rand. That has to come from other sources that DG Mukhajene is working on. But we've given our commitment that we'll try to support SAA as much as we can, and that we'll work as much as we can to help.
Are you not getting tired that they're asking for too much money?
If I ever get tired of anything, I shouldn't be in this job.
And I should imagine it's not just Eskom, is it? What about SAA?
Yeah, I was just saying before we crossed to that particular remark that I posed a question to the Finance Minister yesterday, saying that, look, as you heard in that bite, that we woke up yesterday morning seeing that SAA had cancelled flights as a result of their financial situation there. And the basic question is whether or not Treasury is going to come up with that 2 billion rand that they require. You know, you can see a sense of hesitancy with the finance minister. He said before, we cannot continue with SOEs that are not functioning. And you do not need to guess, you know, that SAA falls in that bracket. So we still don't have any word yet on whether or not that money is forthcoming. But as it stands now, it hangs in the balance. Seems to be some sort of contestation in Treasury, some hesitancy. He says, as you heard in that clip, that the Director General is working tirelessly to try and support SAA.
Going to be quite a hard sales job. Thanks very much.